Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking Activision Blizzard, ticker symbol ATVI. As a disclaimer, this is not investment advice. This is just a research video that I put together meant to be educational as well as entertaining. We're going to take a look at a few different news clippings and articles surrounding the company as of recently, and then we're going to jump into the charts. Thank you for your time. Please continue to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Please enjoy.
You may or may not see this, but it's very possible. One of the things I bought, was bought for a different purpose by a different manager months earlier. He bought roughly 15 million shares of Activision, and I never paid. I knew about the company, but I would just see it at the monthly report. But then on January, 17th or 18th, something like that, Microsoft announced they were going to buy Activision for $95 a share. Now, when they announced that, at that point, Activision becomes a different kind of security. It becomes what Charlie and I used to call, everybody did, 50 years ago, we call them workouts or something like that, and they become known as arbitrage. Well, they're not really arbitrage, but they're securities, or in this case, a common stock, whose value depends not on what the market price does, but whether a given corporate event occurs, an announced corporate event occurs. Well, Microsoft wants to buy Activision, we'll say. Well, they said at $95 a share, and they've got the money. And obviously, mergers and big mergers, tech companies, all kinds of things, have got all kinds of problems with the world generally in terms of opinion. So you don't know what the Justice Department will do, or you don't know what the EU will do, and all kinds of things. But at that point, it becomes a different security. And Charlie and I, 50 years ago, we used to do a lot of that sort of thing. And Gus Levy did it at Goldman Sachs, and we even went back one time, I think, on British Columbia Power, didn't we, Charlie?
Yeah, we certainly did.
Yeah. A guy named Bennett was up there, and we were trying to figure out whether some takeover of the power business. I mean, we spent a lot of time analyzing the probabilities of announced deals going through, and we call them workouts. Now, the term became ARB, and it hasn't worked overall too well in recent years. Now, every now and then, I see something that I want to do in that field, but very seldom, because they got to be big. The profit is limited. If they say you're going to get 95, you're not going to get 96, and if the deal blows up, you may have a stock that's at 40 or something. So but we did it with Monsanto 5 or 6 years ago when Bayer was buying it, and we got very lucky because it turned out to be a terrible acquisition for Bayer, but it did go through because Bayer had the money, and they went through with the deal, even though Monsanto came with a problem that nobody really understands the extent of. And we did it with Red Hat when IBM bought it. So, in any event, on January, whatever it was, 17th, 18th, 19th, Microsoft announces it, and the stock, which had been at 60, let's see I may have a slide here, which I'll find, but in any event, the stock, which had been in the 60s, went up to the 81 or 2, and that looked like not a big enough spread to me for a few days. And then it settled back a little. So anyway, we now own 9.5%, something like 9.5% of Activision. And if we went over 10%, we would file a report. So in order that the news people don't feel that there's no news there, I can tell you that as of yesterday, we own about 9.5%. If we go past 10%, there'll be a form filed with the SEC and so on. But it is it is my purchases, not the manager who bought it some months ago. And if the deal goes through, we make some money, and if the deal doesn't go through, who knows what happens.
Pretty gnarly interview where he starts off with confusing me whether or not he bought it, they bought it, may have bought it with somebody else. I don't know, but they bought some Activision Blizzard, huh? And so this article is just discussing about the Blizzard NetEase deal, and I'm going to go through the entire article. I'll have it linked in the description, but NetEase's Hong Kong listed shares plunged 9% as well. So some bad news for the Chinese gaming firm NetEase. They're ending their 14-year licensing agreement with Activision, and vice versa. I believe it's kind of, it goes both ways. Activision will be losing out on some of those games that NetEase is part of portfolio, right? So it's not terribly. Again, the publishing of like the hotly anticipated mobile and PC game Diablo Immortal in China will not be affected as it's covered by a separate agreement. So like there's just little intricacies about this thing, but it's a sensitive time for Chinese games, the industry, which is a lot of regulation. So let's move on. So let's take a look at this article from Yahoo Finance, and it came out today, this morning, and it just so happens I do one last scrape of data to find out any news articles or anything that's come out on a company that I am researching. And this article talks a little bit about some price predictions between analysts, and it has this nice little chart here where we see here also when Buffett made that purchase, kind of right around where it's at. Intraday video, and it's a little bit different. If you're new to the channel, thanks again. This is not investment advice. This is just something that I'm paying attention to. I am interested in this company, and it's made a nice little, it's made a jump, and it's found this little channel that it's, and we'll go through the charts here in a little bit, but I just wanted to highlight this article because it talks about price predictions and where it's currently sitting at, and this little timeline that it outframes. I think it's pretty important, at least for myself, when I'm ever researching a company. I want to understand what's going on with, especially like antitrust scrutiny and brokerages that own and have a stake in companies such as Activision. So there's a 12-month price target for the stock is $92, and this is coming back, and it's just their standalone prospectus, right? That's what the company is standing for. And Activision shares climbed 1.2% today on Monday, while Microsoft edged lower 0.7%. Microsoft has just, they're just big tech, so big tech's taken a heavy hit as of recently. But if you want to continue looking into this deeply, you can start reading yourself, in one way or another. And I try not to do that when I read articles, right? When I'm just listening to what people get paid to give their opinion, right? So they're going to give their opinion, but you do your best not to get too emotional or overthink something. If you have high conviction for something, at least in my opinion, at least the way that I bootstrapped myself in the markets, is that you just pay attention to what's going on and where it was at, and where you just do your best to kind of see where it can go. So Activision stock has weakened from the low 80s to the mid 70s. And there's definitely the probes with the EU, and there's a filing a lawsuit. So Microsoft's ready to sue or block the deal. So New York Post reported originally some things about this deal, and then Bloomberg, and then everybody else is picking up on what's going on, obviously. So it's just interesting to pick up to say, 6 analysts upgraded the stock in November, including Wells Fargo. So they see all of this, volatility. Perhaps it's just going to be choppy in the meantime. So if you don't have the stomach for it, then, get out of the way. But, there is bullish conviction, and I will highlight what I feel as far as conviction-wise when it comes to actually just looking at the technical analysis of it. But the numbers are, at least from what I'm seeing, is that it's following this little channel here in the 70s. If it does hit down in the 60s, that's another level that had seen some support and resistance in the pass. So anything can happen, obviously, and I think it's pretty cool that they included this map because it does highlight significantly in this channel, the deal to buy Activision, FTC probes, the Buffett deal, everything is highlighted here. So let's jump into my chart. Okay, I am here on my trading view on the Activision Blizzard's chart, and I did a Fibonacci retracement level from a most recent swing high to the most recent swing low, and it's that we're just so beyond any of the lower levels of past support that it's pretty easy, at least for me, to see any charts moving forward. There's levels of resistance. However, there is a nice little break, or at least let me rephrase that. There's a nice level of support that I'm going to highlight in the low 70s. That if it were to break that level more significantly, I could see it going down to a $60 level. No problem if it breaks that level. It's the most recent level of support. I'm going to highlight it right now. Let me get out a paintbrush, and this is what I'm seeing. Right, it's pretty obvious that it's making this channel, and it's finding its path in this channel as quickly as it can find any sort of direction with news or anything good coming out of the way. It has a lot of work to do to fight these levels of resistance, and that's what they have become. So let me just try to take a more optimistic view, and let me say, okay, well, there's a level, it bounced off this level of support, and it's becoming, at least has one or two levels of stair-stepping ascension. So if I were to make this some sort of a play, at least for short term, I would be kind of looking for anything to pop and stay around this level until I could find it, and gradually moving up these channels. But in the meantime, I could definitely see where it just continues to maybe move sideways, and that could be something that is of importance for a number of reasons. And the longer that it stays perhaps in a channel that it's making a new level of support, then that's something perhaps to not, again, get excited about, but at least to pay attention. If you're in the long term, you pay attention to these earnings and revenues, you see that it was more of a positive news that came out with it. So perhaps it stopped the bleeding for the meantime, right? So there was a good report on earnings and revenue, even though with the news of China, the regulations or the deals gone awry, or ending of deals, the company still is making headwinds. And there have been, I didn't touch base on it in the past about any sort of problems within the company and that they're trying to resolve that. I'm trying to stick right now just with the technicals, right? So I'm going to draw out, just for sakes of finding a trend line from at least these two levels of support. And if they can continue on this trend line, and they find the way to navigate and popping through these levels of resistance and making them levels of support, then that's something, it could fall. Of course, it can always fall back to the first step of support, and then try it again to find its legs. And if it can turn an $80 range in that Fibonacci level, if you see it's in the color green, it's literally just asking to be broken out of. And if it does, then I could definitely see where sentiment can start to pick up and the price can continue to move forward. However, anything can happen. I wouldn't be surprised one way or the other. So again, I don't like to get too excited. So for sure, but this is not investment advice. So let me leave it here. I want to thank you for your time. If there's another company, ETF, IPO, or cryptocurrency that you'd like for me to research, just drop it in the comment section below. I will do my best to get to it as soon as possible. If you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It really does help out the channel. It allows me to keep making these types of videos, and I really do appreciate it. So until the next time, y'all take care. Have a good day.